dream team is here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. Good to see all of you here. I want to start with a preview of President Trump's very busy schedule for the week. Later this afternoon, the president will be making a major announcement focused on the childhood autism epidemic.
Boy, did he ever.
Advisors who are working to make America healthy again. This will be a powerful display of how the entire Trump administration is committed to addressing root causes of chronic conditions and diseases, embracing full transparency in government, and championing gold standard science.
They pretty much just blame Tylenol, saying, do not take Tylenol. It's the root cause of autism. I still have to watch that whole video, but that's the gist of how that meeting went.
The president will depart to New York City ahead of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. He will be joined in New York City by the First Lady. Tomorrow morning, President Trump will deliver a major speech touting the renewal of American strength around the world, his historic accomplishments in just 8 months, including the ending of 7 global wars and conflicts. The president—
Didn't he say 6?
Will also touch upon how globalist institutions have significantly decayed the world order, and he will articulate his straightforward and constructive vision for the world. The president will also be hosting bilateral meetings with the UN Secretary General and the leaders of Ukraine, Argentina, and the European Union. The president will also later in the day hold a multilateral meeting with Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, the UAE, and Jordan. After these important meetings, the president will attend a reception tomorrow night with more than 100 world leaders before returning to Washington, D.C.
I'll bet he will. Let's get to some questions.
We appreciate it. We also greatly appreciate the outpouring of support and just the really kind words that we heard yesterday at the memorial service. That means more to us than I don't think anybody ever knows. And even the global support that we're seeing for Charlie has been overwhelming, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much. I have 3 questions, if I may, on the horrific murder of Charlie Kirk. Government and local officials said that Antifa inscriptions were engraved in these bullet casings that killed Charlie Kirk. It appears to be a trend, especially after what we saw in the Annunciation Church shooting, Catholic church shooting. Additionally, Stephen Miller recently commented on the rise in this kind of violence, saying there is a domestic terrorist movement growing in this country. The president is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. I'm wondering, what is the approach to holding these people accountable, just to ensure that violence like this just is eradicated moving forward?
Sure. Well, Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. The president intends to sign that executive order very soon as it's drafted, as soon as today, later this afternoon.
As of right now, he actually already signed it.
And this is something the president campaigned on, because we have seen a rise in violence perpetuated by Antifa radical people across this country who subscribe to this group. And unfortunately, it's gone widely uncovered by many in the legacy media. It also went completely ignored by the previous administration. Not anymore. Not only, as you mentioned, were the bullet casings subscribed with Antifa mottos, if you will, in the heinous assassination of Charlie, but there have also been more examples than I could read off for you here in this briefing room today of violence from Antifa. I will just read a few. In July 2025, several members of an Antifa cell ambushed and opened fire on officers at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, shooting 1 officer in the neck. Also in July 2025, 3 Antifa members were charged with assaulting a police officer during a violent riot outside an ICE facility in Portland, which for weeks prior had been under siege from the local Antifa terror cell. In February 2024, a transgender Antifa terrorist detonated an explosive device outside of the office of the Republican Attorney General of Alabama. In July 2023, Antifa members linked to abortionist group Jane's Revenge firebombed pro-life facilities and vandalized churches. In January 2022, a suspected Antifa member was arrested for bringing a pipe bomb to a pro-Trump event. In January 2021, an Antifa supporter threatened to shoot police officers and Trump supporters outside of the Florida State Capitol building. Again, I could continue to list many more examples for those in the room who don't believe this is a serious threat to American safety safety and our national security, but this administration knows that it is. That's why the president will be signing this order. And we will also be, most importantly, looking at who is funding Antifa and who is funding these other violent left-wing groups that we've seen perpetuate so much crime and mayhem across our country.
Anytime you hear that, they mean George Soros. Absolutely anytime you hear that, they just mean George Soros. And that's a setup question if I've ever heard one. These going forward are not setup questions, though, for the most part.
Going back to the president's social media post from over the weekend regarding the DOJ and his seeming frustration that they hadn't taken action quickly enough, I want to point to something that the president said during his inaugural address. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. We will not allow that to happen. Is the president going back on his promise?
Yes.
No. In fact, the president is fulfilling his promise to restore a
He's retaliating.
Department of Justice that demands accountability. And it is not weaponizing the Department of Justice to demand accountability for those who weaponized the Department of Justice. And nobody knows what that looks like more than President Trump. We are not going to tolerate gaslighting from anyone in the media or from anyone on the other side who is trying to say that it's the president who is weaponizing the DOJ. It was Joe Biden and his attorney general who weaponized the DOJ. Joe Biden used this sacred American institution to go after his political opponent in the middle of an election year. And you look at people like Adam Schiff and like James Comey and like Letitia James, who the president is rightfully frustrated. He wants accountability for these corrupt fraudsters who abused their power, who abused their oath of office to target the former president and then candidate for the highest office in the land.
He wants them in jail. When they said that there's no evidence to actually jail them or to bring a case, he then fired the person who he had appointed to actually find evidence. He's making the conclusion first and then saying, find me evidence to this conclusion. They looked into Letitia James and said there's nothing here to bring a case. So the recommendation was to just drop it. He didn't like that answer because that's letting her go scot-free. It's right here. According to the AP, the U.S. attorney under pressure to charge Letitia James in mortgage fraud case has resigned. Why did he resign? Because the word already came down that he was about to get fired. So rather than get embarrassed and fired, he just chose to withdraw himself from the situation. Smart man. Trump doesn't want justice. He wants revenge. And someone that can provide him results to get his revenge, he will let go of that person and find someone else. The reason why he keeps people like Pam Bondi around is not just because they're loyal. It's because they're saying that the things you want, we will try our best to make that happen. What he did was he drew a conclusion and then wants you to validate that conclusion. And if you cannot validate said conclusion, then he will find someone that will. It's called finding a yes man.
And his hope for accountability by the millions and millions of people who reelected him to this office with a mandate to demand accountability. And the president has not been shy about this, Gabe. In fact, when he traveled to the Department of Justice earlier this year, all of you were there to cover it. He said, quote, "I demand a full and complete accountability for wrongs and abuses that have occurred. The American people gave a mandate to investigate and root the corruption out of our system," and that's what the president wants to see done. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. So too on the Homan investigation, I mean, can you just speak to, did the president ask the Justice Department to close the case, and does Homan have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters in the midst of a presidential campaign. You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters, someone who they knew very well would be taking a government position months later. Mr. Homan did absolutely nothing wrong, and even the President's Department of Justice, even Kash Patel's FBI, looked into this just to make sure. They had a number of different prosecutors and FBI agents who looked into this. They found zero evidence of illegal activity or criminal wrongdoing. In the White House and the president stand by Tom Homan 100% because he did absolutely nothing wrong, and he is a brave public servant who has done a phenomenal job in helping the president shut down the border.
What was actually funny about this was to hear people like Megyn Kelly, I think was being stated on X, Tim Miller of The Bulwark. What he said was, so now the right doesn't really care if a federal official takes a bribe. And Megyn Kelly actually said, no, we don't. Anything to beat you guys. So it is actually funny to see mask off. Of course I would expect him to say no. This is the same administration that accepted a jet from Qatar. They get almost weekly gifts from all these tech companies. He has his meme coin where it is very likely that people could just be routing money directly to him. So what answer would you really expect? When an accusation comes up, the administration's method is deny, deny, deny. And even when caught, just move on. Pete Hegseth.
Sure, in the pink.
Thanks, Caroline. Liz Landers with PBS NewsHour. I just wanted to follow up quickly on something that the president had said yesterday. So we heard from Erica Kirk. She said she forgives the man who shot and killed her husband. And then
The hate the left's comment.
from the president who said, I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them. How does that square with bringing down the temperature of political violence in this country? And then, if I could, I had a follow-up on Venezuela, too.
Look, the president is authentically himself. I think that's why millions of Americans across the country love him and support him, including Erica Kirk, who you saw so beautifully was on stage with the president in an unthinkable moment, in the midst of an unthinkable tragedy, and was leaning on the president for support during that time. And he was there to give it to her, as well as the vice president and many other top-ranking cabinet officials. Kayla.
We're just going to move on? So she's not going to actually address what it is that he said. You're the leader of a country. You are supposed to unite that country. Him now making the claim that he's the master of the art of the deal and that he could treat the country like it's a business. Imagine if you had a business where half of the employees hated the other half. You have to then, as the CEO, unite your business. Because if you didn't, there would be no harmony. Now, taking into consideration that you are the leader, everything starts from the top. When you have to now make the call for everyone to kind of calm down, you have to make that determination. You have to give that speech. You have to actually say the words that are needed for everyone to bring the temperature down. That can't fall to people on social media. That can't fall to other politicians. Everything starts at the top. So if the top is telling everyone that we don't need to turn the temperature down, then no one is going to. Why? Because everyone follows the head. I have said this before and I will say it again. Trump is not just the president of Republicans. You're the president of Democrats as well. The decisions that you make as the man in charge, it has an effect on Democrats, it has an effect on Republicans. I get that naturally, of course, you want to boost your side, but when it comes down to political violence, the denunciation has to start with the man on top. Imagine Moses in the desert with all the Israelites and all the people from Egypt that followed along, and then him leaving all the responsibility of the decisions that get made to the people. What would you call that? It's called bad leadership. You are the man in charge. You're the one that people voted for. Granted, there were others that voted against you, but nonetheless, when you're in that office, when you're in that seat, you make the call. We used to call that leadership. I don't know what it is that you call it today. Leadership used to be commended by how you handle the good and how you handle the bad. If you have a whole side of people that are against you, you still have to unite them. Why? Because that's how the country functions. You have to unite the country, not just your side. Okay, one more question.
The case against Letitia James was extensively investigated for 5 months, and President Trump's handpicked Attorney General Eric Siebert could not find any evidence that he committed a crime. So is the president saying here it doesn't matter if there's a crime, he just wants his political enemies to be charged?
Well, let me
First off, she looked pissed. Look at that facial expression. Jeez.
Saying here it doesn't matter if there's a crime, he just wants his political enemies to be charged.
Yes.
Well, let me just walk you through Letitia James. Letitia James completely abused her oath of office. Letitia James was actively and openly engaged in lawfare. You talk about weaponizing the Department of Justice. What was Letitia James's campaign slogan? It was prosecute Donald Trump. She was saying she was going to prosecute Donald Trump before she even knew if Donald Trump committed a crime, which of course we did not. Those are not the words of a serious prosecutor. Those are the words of a corrupt politician who is abusing their power. She actively campaigned on that. She also led the witch hunt, the financial fraud investigation against President Trump and the Trump Organization, and an appeals court tossed that case out, a $500 million civil fraud penalty in August, which was another win for the president, and exonerated him of this witch hunt and showed that this is an individual who is corrupt and abused her oath of office. And we also have evidence of her mortgage fraud. An April report from a white-collar fraud investigator found that there was documented evidence that James engaged in a consistent pattern of financial and property disclosures that raise serious legal questions.
But why won't the president accept the conclusion?
I don't think she heard the question. I genuinely do not think that she actually heard the question, because the question was, All of this that she just mentioned, let's just grant her and just say it's all true. If all of that is true, why did Eric Siebert say that there's nothing? If all of what she just said is true, did he not do his due diligence? Is that what she's saying? That he didn't do his homework? That he came with a lack of results because he actually didn't do any work? Is that the claim? Because if it's not, then the conclusion is you just didn't like his answer.
Of his Justice Department to not bring charges against Letitia James. In fact, you had Bondi and Blanche,
He's
top DOJ
pissed.
leadership, who were against ousting Eric Siebert, who again was picked by President Trump.
I just answered that question for you, and the president has every right to express how he feels about these people who literally campaigned on trying to put him in jail, who literally tried to ruin his life and ruin his businesses, and he wants to see accountability for those who abuse their office and abuse their power. And Letitia James absolutely did that, whether you want to admit it or not.
Is that not
Jeff.
retribution, though?
Jeff, it's accountability.
Thanks,
Jeff.
Caroline. 2 foreign policy questions. President Putin.
No, we're done. That's exactly what it is. You heard that last part, right? Is that not retribution?
His life and ruin his businesses, and he wants to see accountability for those who abuse their office and abuse their power. And Letitia James absolutely did that, whether you want to admit it or
Is
not.
that not
Jeff.
retribution, though?
Jeff,
Yes,
it's
it is.
accountability.
Thanks,
Jeff.
Caroline.
No, it's not. That's retribution. You want retaliation. You want vengeance. You want your pound of flesh.
You have stupid MAGA brain.
Listen, I'm going to leave things there. This is not a good look. This is not a good look because more and more, and it's not even a year yet, more and more what you're realizing is the mask is just coming off. Officially, they're just stating that rules be damned. We will do as we please. And if that's the case, I wonder how much longer that experiment can actually continue. Whatever your thoughts are, leave them in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, and I will see you again on the next one. Be easy, y'all.